the PPT. Where's where's Leon?
Oh, Leon, I think you have to step on the stage so that your share screen will be the same.
Sorry. Is that okay?
Yes.
Hello to all the members in the core conference. I'm Nikki, and I'm the team leader of the presentation. We'll divide our presentation into three parts. Tiffany and I are responsible for the first part, which outlines and provides background to the whole presentation. First, I will guide you to understand not only the trade wars, but I'll also offer some examples of trade wars, so you'll have a clear understanding of what actually a trade war is. What is a trade war? A trade war is an action of a country which imposes tariffs or places on strict restrictions on another country's imports. So why would a country put restrictions or even impose large number of tariffs on other countries' imports? To begin with, a government would place trade restrictions in order to protect domestic industries from foreign competitors, especially domestic industries. From this could be, for instance, especially in domestic industries which don't have the natural advantages in production. Next slide. What is the natural advantages in production? The domestic industries which don't have that natural advantages in production, this could be, for instance, an environmental disadvantage in crops and other goods, perhaps due to the geographic location to the country. In this situation, some domestic producers would purchase which businesses is being threatened under the terms of free trade might urge to the government to provide them with protection. And such as implementing restrictions on or imposing tariffs on imports. This would be beneficial to domestic producers. Like what? For example, implement in the domestic sector would increase. But why? For a start, due to tariffs, foreign goods would become would be more expensive, and as a result, consumers would purchase more domestic goods. As the demand for domestic goods increase, so would implement in these sectors. Let's take a look at the U.S. steel industry. Sorry, next page. For instance, with the production place, more U.S. steel has been purchased, and more jobs have been created in the U.S. steel workers. And it's not only the U.S. steel industry that benefits, since the use of steel is widespread, of other business that make use of steel will be also benefit. Now, my partner will continue the presentation and give you another example of the U.S. and China trade war.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, and I'm going to tell you about the history of trade war. Trade war didn't happen when the previous U.S. president was in office, but why did these things happen after Trump took office? Trump is a businessman. He felt that China was getting stronger and U.S. was threatened by China. So he has to think of a way to slow down China's growth. There are two reasons that Trump started the trade war. First, the US has always had a huge deficit with China. Second, Trump said that China steals US intellectual property rights and trade secrets. Next page. So, in 2017, US conducting a lot of investigations and put China on a property watch list. And in 2018, US imposed 25% tariff on steel and about US $50 billion imported products and restrict Chinese investment. In April, US also prohibits companies from selling components to ZTE. And now it's time for China to fight back. China imposed 5 to 25% tariff on about US $60 billion US goods. And at the same time, US imposed 10% tariff on most of China's goods. And the tariff will increase to 25% in the beginning of 2019. After that, they just keep doing things like this until 2020. Jen.
Hi, my name is Jen, and I believe that you guys already understand the origin of the trade war between the US and China. So now let me introduce my partners, it's Angel and Wayne. We will be talking about the cost that this situation has brought to the domestic industry environment in these countries. Next page. 2018 to 2021. In this period, many economists and experts have predicted the market in the US and China would result in a pessimistic trend, and people consider that this war is based on the fighting between two governments. However, the citizens are also suffering the harm of all this struggle. First, about the job opportunities in these two countries. Many people already know that the move out of the global OEM, which is the original equipment manufacturers in China, has influenced the employment rate locally. But actually, it also has a counter effect to the US. The purpose of starting the trade war from Trump is to create jobs and lower US trade deficit. But USCBC, which is the US and China Business Council, has warned that it has already caused a peak loss of 245,000 of job opportunities in America. In the long term, trade will slow down the economic growth and it creates more layoffs, not fewer. Angel.
Hi, I'm here to present the expenses of the trade war. We know that due to the trade war, the U.S. experienced inflation. The simplest assumption is that consumers will bear 100% of the cost of the increased tariffs. For instance, if the U.S. has a $20 trillion GDP and the government imposes a 10% tariff on $200 billion worth of imported goods, then U.S. consumers would see the advantage, the average price rising by 0.1%. One study finds that the group of tariffs levied only during the year 2018 would raise the cost of the consumption bundle for the average household by about $135. An update by the same author estimates the cost of tariffs imposed in 2018 and through June 2019 will cost the average U.S. household to $200. The latest studies suggest the combination of tariffs and increased trade policy uncertainty creates a substantial drag on the economy as a whole. Net losses projected for 2020 are between above $500 and $1,700 per household. Costs imposed by tariffs go beyond direct dollar price increases on targeted goods. And then it's Angel.
Hi, my name is Angel, and I'm going to talk about cooperation in both countries. Since the imposed tariffs, many corporations and companies have faced reduction in profitability, which will also affect their investment in global linkage and supply chain. As you can see, this chart by BBC collected from American Enterprise Institute is about the Chinese investment in the US, which the figure kept decreasing. From the peak of 54 billion US dollars in 2016, dropped to 2.5 billion in the first half of 2019. Studies also found that by the end of the same year, the trade war had also reduced US investment growth by 0.3 percentage points. As for China, it used to be the biggest exporter of the United States. Soybeans, iron, as we mentioned in part 1, and chemicals are some products that China imports the most from the US. However, now the US is not providing these products, so industries that are related might face price increases. Next page. I would also like to mention the impact of farming. And here are some examples: soybeans, corns, cottons, and wheats. The income of exporting agriculture products to China dropped from 25 billion US dollars to 7 billion. At the same time, the former President Trump had also provided 28 billion subsidies for these farmers. And here are some conclusions.
I'm here to make a little conclusion on the costs part. From the statements above, we can know that through the trade war, a lot of people lost their jobs, impacted by inflation, and even the income from crop exports has fallen sharply. And now the following team members are going to introduce how the global economy influences the world.
Hello, I'm Isa, and in part 3, we are going to introduce impacts on the global economy, and this part is responsible for me and Anita. Due to the US and China trade war, many countries are having different impacts on the economy. First, I'm going to introduce the impact on Taiwan. Some global companies and Taiwanese companies moved part of their production activity back to Taiwan to adjust production lines. And this kind of trade transfer effect and investment effect led to a rapid increase in exports of Taiwan and countries like Vietnam to the United States in 2019, and which are regarded as the most obvious beneficiary of the US and China trade war. And as the data below, you can see the trade deficit comparison between these countries. The growing amounts show that Taiwan and Vietnam really get benefits from the trade war. Although Taiwan gets some benefits, we still need to pay attention to some aspects because of the policies or agreements between the two countries, like hard exports of technology industry to China may be replaced by the USA. Therefore, industries in Taiwan should think of more methods to make responses to this kind of situation. Next page. As for the impact on Latin America, we choose Brazil as the one to introduce. The imposed tariffs have some effect on Brazilian exports, like when China increased the 1% tariff on imports from the USA, Brazilian exports to China increased 0.135%. And the condition is very similar to exports to the USA. And when we focus on the specific commodities such as soybeans, petroleum, machinery, plastic, and rubber, we'll find the correlation is even stronger. And the bar graph shows that after China's tariffs imposed on the USA imports, the soybean imports from Brazil rose obviously. Next please. And here's some Brazilian exports. And now it's my partner's turn.
Hello, my name is Anita, and I'm gonna talk about two other countries that have impact during the trade war. First, Vietnam is said to be the biggest beneficiary of the trade war. This chart shows that there is a huge increase between 2018 and 2019, and the number is still climbing. However, the increase now may not be a good sign for too long. According to a famous economist,
The benefits Vietnam is now getting from America are said to be short-term. What Vietnam and also other Southern East Asian countries are facing is a country that can control them easily. Next page. After saying the biggest beneficiary, let's talk about a country that got a big hit during the trade war. Surprisingly, Germany is on the list whose country has been affected badly during the trade war. The most important reason is that China is stalling the markets with Germany, but Germany isn't getting as many Chinese markets as before. Also, the problem in the European Union as well affects Germany's economy. In this chart, you can see that the IFO Business Climate Index has become real low after 2018, meaning that the economy isn't that good as before. And next page. The US-China trade war is affecting all countries around the world. Maybe we teenagers aren't really feeling any serious changes in our daily life, but it is still happening. In this chart, you can see that the average GDP around the world is decreasing, which is considered to be a bad news for the globe. It's not that easy for the US and China to stop trade war, but if this lasts too long, some countries should worry about their economic system. These are some reflections from our group members about trade war. Thanks for listening.